We are recording this session, so if you miss out on any part of it, don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like to receive the recording. So my name is Tanya Torres. I am the Client Services Manager here at Donor Egg Bank USA. And I just wanted to welcome you to our live webinar series. Today is Journey to Joy, Donor Egg Bank USA, Mom Jennifer Johnston, on our live birth guarantee.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for having me here today, Tanya. I really appreciate it.
Welcome. We're excited to have you here today.
Thank you.
Head
Well, it's
over.
always exciting for me to talk to other people who are looking or maybe just starting their journey towards building their family with donor eggs. I know when I started my process with my husband, for us, it was a bit of a shock. And I'm sure for many people, it can be a bit of a surprise when they hear sort of, donor eggs or that it comes up as a concept. For me, it wasn't something I knew a lot about before kind of hearing that from my doctor. When we first started this process, it was kind of I was in my early mid 30s and thought, when me and my husband had been together a long time, we weren't even sure that we wanted children when we were first together. And then I turned 30 and something changed, and I decided that I really did want to have a family. So, we sort of talked about it and got on board and, sold our condo and moved to a house on a cul-de-sac with kids. And great, we're going to have a family and this is great. And not quite how our story went, unfortunately, at first. So, we're looking out the window and we've got the empty bedroom and, we were trying and nothing was
Do
happening.
something.
And it
Mm-hmm.
was it was pretty frustrating and disheartening, looking out the window every day and seeing kids out there and just it wasn't happening for us. So
Yeah.
um, I asked to be referred basically to a fertility specialist after about 6 months of trying and just had a feeling something was wrong. I was tracking, I was keeping track of things. And I thought, something probably should be happening by now and wasn't. So we tried medications and, we tried IUI and finally we moved to IVF. And I mean, that was an overwhelming thing, like IVF, like I can't believe we need IVF. And then that didn't work. I got pregnant, but I would miscarry again and again. And we were unexplained. So, I think I was 33 at the time and, everything looked normal on paper on my blood tests. We couldn't figure out really why it wasn't working other than suspicion that it was egg quality. Um, so we kind of thought, okay, well, and so after several rounds of IVF, we did get lucky, and one time we did conceive on our own. It was a pretty nerve-wracking pregnancy, but we had our first son, Darby, when I was 34, and then everyone kind of went, "Yay, you're cured!" you know, fertility problems. You had a kid. This is great. And we sort of knew in our hearts that that wasn't going to be the case. We knew how hard it had been and how many drugs I had been on as part of the IVF. And I had a feeling that, something about that had allowed us maybe this one time to just
Yeah.
go blind and we got pregnant, right?
The
But I didn't think
chances.
it was likely to repeat itself.
Yeah.
So we tried again. We tried on our own. We went back and did IVF again with my own eggs, and our results were worse than ever. Like we didn't have any blastocysts. I mean, we had sort of day 3 embryos limping along, and I said, we'd already been looking at donor eggs a little bit before our pregnancy. So we sort of said, let's go back to that plan. Let's look at that a little bit more seriously. And that's when we really started talking to our fertility clinic about donor egg bank.
Sunrise. Yeah.
And
And we're so glad that you did. And, we have an amazing team and program available to everyone who is joining us today. And I hope that you all ask questions. I just want to mention we have a Q&A box where you may post questions anonymously if you wish. There's the check mark there that you can mark if you wish to post a question anonymously or not. And post your question if you don't have questions while you're on here with us today, but something comes to mind afterwards. We are available by phone, by chat, by email. And I just think Jennifer has so much wonderful information to share, and just her journey is going to be encouraging, and hopefully you'll ask those questions that can help you make the decision if this is the right path for you, and we'd love to help you along that way. Let's go to the next slide. So kind of an overview of what we're going to talk about, and Jennifer's given us a little bit of a preview as to her journey, and already, like the steps that have gotten her to us and connected with us. But we're going to hear about her story some more, and we're going to talk about some of the options available with Donor Egg Bank USA and our live birth guarantee plan. And then we'll have a space for Q&A at the end, like I mentioned, and we look forward to all of your questions and to our conversation today with Jennifer. So just so you know a little bit about Donor Egg Bank USA, excuse me, we are the #1 egg bank here in the US. Since our inception in 2012, we've performed more than 13,000 egg warmings. We've helped over 10,000 families, and we have one of the largest catalogs in the industry with over 250 donors who have been pre-screened and qualify for this program. We offer a live birth guarantee, which goes along with hopefully offering some additional peace of mind. And we have a team, like I mentioned, of family building consultants who are here and ready to answer questions and assist you throughout each step of the process. So without further ado, we're gonna hear some more about Jennifer and her story and her family, and like I said, I'm looking forward to your questions, and also just listening to your story as well, Jennifer. Welcome again.
Great, thanks, Tanya. I appreciate that. So I jumped in a little bit early there, just with a little bit of the background on me, kind of how we got started with this, and kind of the process of coming to the idea of donor eggs, which was something, I'll be honest, I didn't even know prior to this whole infertility journey. I didn't really even know that it existed. I'd certainly heard of sperm donors, but I hadn't really learned a lot about egg donation. So it was a pretty new concept to me. But there were a lot of things that, as we thought more about it, and as we kind of realized that we wanted to have siblings for our oldest son, and we wanted to have them, somewhat close together, that really appealed to us about Donor Egg Bank. You want to go forward? There we are. Perfect. So some of the reasons that we really looked at Donor Egg Bank, and we looked at a number of egg banks when we started out, and we looked at the idea of, fresh eggs versus frozen eggs versus, like what the different options would be, because it was all a learning curve for me. It was brand new to us. And I had never heard of anything like the Assured Refund Plan until I started looking into Donor Egg Bank. And that was a really big factor that kind of pushed me more in the direction of moving forward with frozen donor eggs. I had always kind of joked and said that there's no guarantees in the world of infertility, because that had been our experience for so many years. And to hear that actually Donor Egg Bank did offer a guarantee was something that I'd never heard of in the fertility industry up to that point. And the idea that after all this money that we had spent on my own egg IVF cycles, with nothing really to show for it at the end of the day, and to just kind of keep putting emotional and financial investment into what felt like a bit of a hole, with nothing to show for it, it was just really disheartening, and it felt difficult to keep going. So when we heard about this Assured Refund Plan and the fact that we would basically be getting our money back if we didn't have a live birth, like not just a pregnancy, but an actual birth of a child. Um, that was really kind of the game changer for us. That really, like my husband and I were like, okay, this really could be something that we could see ourselves moving forward with. Um, so the second part of that was just kind of once we started exploring it, was just reaching out to Donor Egg Bank directly. And everyone like has different ways that they like to communicate. But for me, I actually liked talking to somebody by phone, kind of developing a personal relationship where I was calling the same person, and able to bounce things off of her, as things went along in the process and I had questions so that I felt like it wasn't, an anonymous person who didn't know me at all. I felt like I at least had a connection with her and I had somebody I could talk to and ask my questions as the process moved along.
Yeah.
So I was able to set up a free profile so that I could have access to the donor base and start taking a look at some of the donors. When I first started, I thought I would be, in tears and depressed and, looking at these other people. And I worried about all of those kind of things. But once I kind of got my head around the idea that we were going to be able to, have siblings for our older son, that I would be able to carry a pregnancy again, that I would be able to give birth again, that all these things that I knew I wanted, I really got more excited about the process and really started to look seriously on the profiles, every day, add people to my favorites as I thought that they might be a possibility. And I would really recommend doing that, because then you can kind of refer back later and you don't lose track of those people that you were most interested in. Um, so there's just a lot of different options, for me to find a donor that I was really going to be happy with.
I do like that you mentioned adding to your favorites, Jennifer, just as someone who has been a family building consultant as well, because even though you don't necessarily choose that one profile, it can help us help you when you're searching too. Just it gives us a broader idea. We don't always necessarily we don't receive photos from someone who's calling in, and so we're kind of swimming in a little bit of darkness when we're trying to help. And even, some people share photos, some people don't, but when you start to say favorites, that can help us help you a little bit more to narrow down perhaps what you're looking for and help you in finding that right match. So it's really helpful. I like that you mentioned that.
That's a great point, Tanya. I hadn't even really thought about the fact that it would also help you, as consultants to be able to see, oh, this is the kind of donor that they might be interested in.
Yeah.
What I liked about the favorites feature was often donors would come up and then of course someone would reserve them and I go, oh, where did that, oh, I like that one. Where did they go? So by saving them to your favorites, even if they are not available at that moment, I could still see their profile rather
Mhm.
than have it disappear from the site. So I could at least keep track of ones that I was interested in because sometimes they would come back and
Exactly.
then I could see, oh, they're available again. Whereas if I hadn't favorited them, then they're kind of gone until, unless I happen to catch it when they pop back up.
Exactly.
So then the other thing that I really liked, I'm in Canada personally, but so in Canada, egg donation is even trickier. So having the option to be able to work with my, fabulous team at Olive Fertility or my local clinic here and have my eggs shipped right to my clinic, work with my current doctor, that was a huge plus for me because the financial burden of having to buy a plane ticket and travel to the US or, that kind of thing would have been, really another level of expense and difficulty for us.
Yeah.
So just the ability for them to ship it here and everything for me to be able to, just continue with my treatment,
Yeah.
was really a great bonus as well.
Yeah. And we do, um, when we have our intended parents who are in different countries, different states, we set things up so that you are able to see donors who are eligible to ship to you because, like Canada has very specific regulations. And so we take over that legwork and we take a look and make sure that what what you've chosen is eligible and, can be shipped and accepted by your clinic. So
which was great. So then when I picked a donor, it wasn't like, oh, but we can't send that to you because you're,
Mhm.
it was all taken care of ahead of time, and that was really appreciated.
Yep.
I'm gonna go to the next slide there, Tanya. So, because I'd had, obviously fertility treatment previously, I'd been through IVF, I'd had egg retrievals, I'd had, multiple miscarriages. In my mind, I was concerned that maybe I wouldn't qualify for the assured refund plan. I thought, well, unless I had a perfect, medical history and no miscarriages and I worried that maybe I wouldn't be accepted into the plan. So what I kind of wanted to reassure, the participants, people listening in today, is that the vast majority of people do qualify for the assured refund plan. The qualification process was pretty simple. I did a mock cycle, and that basically involved taking oral medication, having a couple of ultrasounds just to check that I could grow my lining to where it needed to be. And once it reached that point, it was like, yep, you're accepted pretty much. And we were able to sort of move forward with the next step. So I thought at first, not knowing that much, that it would be this big, arduous, program. And really, it was like a couple of appointments in the space of a week or two. And pretty quickly, I was approved. So that was great news.
Yeah,
Um,
most people, we're looking at a lot of different factors where most people who apply are gonna be eligible for the refund plans. And most of the time you've already done the like screenings needed for us to be able to determine your eligibility in the plan. So that's a nice perk, because usually people have had some type of uterine evaluation. Usually people have had their weight taken and their height taken, and we know their body mass index, and so it's typically fairly easy to review and to qualify. And then in the times that maybe something additional is needed, then we'll let you know, and you're able to take care of that as necessary. So I'm glad that was the case for you.
Yeah, no, I just found it was a very simple process. And like you say, a lot of the things they could check off without me even needing to do anything,
Mhm.
which was great, just from my own medical history that my doctor already had on file. So that was really good. So then my husband went, for one basic blood draw, which was testing for genetic conditions, just so that we could know ahead of time, because it does list for the donors. So we could look ahead of time and see, if he had a medical condition, a genetic condition, we could basically eliminate donors that had that same condition. Um, so like, unless they both had it, there really wasn't a risk of it happening.
Yep.
So we were lucky that he did test negative, which basically opened it up for us to pick any donor in our particular case. But again, it was pretty quick and easy. And then there was a counseling appointment required as well. And I don't know why I was a little bit hesitant about going for that. I just kind of was like, well, we made up our mind, and why should I have to go for a counseling appointment? And it ended up being a great thing. So I'm really glad that they have that requirement. And I would strongly encourage, like, don't have my attitude about it. Like, it was a great experience, because I kind of went into it thinking all about my feelings and my husband's feelings, and was I going to feel different or less of a parent than he was because he would be genetically related. And all these thoughts were in my head, I guess, going into things. Would I feel differently about, donor conceived children versus the child conceived with my own eggs? All these thoughts were in my head. And when we got there, the counselor very quickly was like, well, no, but you're going to be having a child. So let's talk about them. And let's really think about, how you're going to explain things to them and tell them their story. And let's think about your family as a whole. And I don't know, she just got us thinking about lots of different things. And it really helped for me and my husband to just talk it through and sort of express a lot of our thoughts and concerns. And I think we just both felt much more secure and firm in our decision after having that counseling session. So for us, it was a really good step in the process.
Mhm.
So once we kind of completed all of that and all the check marks, were on the file, we decided to go ahead and choose a donor. So as I said, we've been adding favorites and, adding and eliminating for many weeks at this point. And I kind of kept coming back to a couple of donors that I liked. One of them was not available at the time, but we really liked almost everything about her. And then there was a second donor that we really liked as well. couple of the things didn't quite line up, but they were minor things, and we really liked her as well. I liked her writing, I liked her photos. She looked a lot like me as a child, a lot of the same interests. So we ended up going with that donor, and we had the eggs shipped to our clinic. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, when my cycle started, we began. Compared to own egg IVF, it was so much easier. Um, you know, very, very simple process. And then, we ended up basically, I guess it was a week or so later, a couple weeks later, we found out that we had a couple of day 3 embryos at this time. It was a little different than it is now. And we ended up transferring those. So I did become pregnant, and I was pregnant for about 7 weeks. And then I did start bleeding, and I ended up that I had miscarried. So that was a really difficult step because, we had to actually transfer 2, again, this sort of a different scenario, and they both took initially, and then we did have a miscarriage. So obviously very upsetting. I sort of felt broken, if you will, like, even with donor eggs, I can't stay pregnant. I had all these thoughts in my head, that something was wrong with me. But you know what? I got through the miscarriage, and because we were in that assured refund plan, and this is why I genuinely, like, to anyone, I would recommend this plan, because after all that we had been through, if we had paid for a single egg lot and we had to go and say, well, money out the window, let's go buy another egg lot with no guarantee, I honestly don't think at that moment, emotionally or financially, I could have kept going. Like, I think that would have been it. We would have stuck with one child, and I would have had to stop. But because we were in that assured refund plan, I had like that complete reassurance that, okay, like, this is not a fun experience. This is not something I want to be going through, but we're going to have the ability to choose another donor. We're going to have the ability to try again. We're not out any money for this. Like, there's nothing we have to come up with now to start the process again. We just have to take our time and emotionally work through it, and then take another look and kind of regroup. So that's what we ended up doing. It was about 2 months for us, but it just took a little bit of time to kind of emotionally get back and get ready. And then we found that the donor that we had originally kind of wanted but wasn't available was available again. So we selected her. She really matched every criteria that we were looking for. And as soon as my next cycle started, we had the eggs shipped to my clinic, and we transferred again. So out of 6 eggs, 4 of them made blastocyst, and we transferred 1 fresh, and we froze 3. And like, I was amazed. We had never, ever with my own eggs had even one, fully formed, day 5 blastocyst. So this was like unbelievable for us. And the first one took, my numbers were really, really strong, took right off, and it was like a very healthy, normal, wonderful pregnancy. And we had my son Felix in 2019. And then about a year and a bit later, we decided to transfer one of the frozen embryos. And same thing, great results, early pregnancy tests, numbers were, skyrocketing, and had my son Miller in 2021 to complete our family. So we still have 2 frozen, and we're not probably planning to use those. I think we're done. But yeah, really great success.
And when you talk about coming for that, after the failures, like, for us, we're so invested in having you have success too. And I do like to mention that, because when you're in the refund plans, like, we're alongside with you in that we want you to have success as soon as possible, right? Um, in some cases, people need that second or third or even fourth or fifth try. But our team, like, we do amongst ourselves talk and collaborate and try to figure out, like, who and where and what donor and what can we do to try to help our client be successful, because we hear you. We hear those calls when we have a disappointing outcome, and nobody wants that. not at all why we're here. And so I do love that about the refund plan because we have that opportunity and it sets you up in that way to know that, okay, you know, you can take some time um, and rest, but you already have also that option ready for you once you can, you know, come back and move forward. And that's part of the beauty of what this plan offers that I personally enjoy so much. So
I will say that I did call our consultant after, after the miscarriage, and she was wonderful and sympathetic and really helped me with choosing the next donor. Like, I really leaned strongly towards this one, and she was kind of able to say that looked like a good choice and kind of helped me make the final decision, and was super excited for us when it worked out. And, we kept in touch for quite some time, and she was wonderful. So
yeah,
like having that connection was really important and really helpful.
we do celebrate all our babies when we hear about them. So
Yeah, absolutely. I had to send her a couple of pictures once they were born. So,
okay, next.
so just some advice I guess I would have is to ask, what would I say to somebody just starting the process? Just try to educate yourself as much as you can, kind of on the steps so that you're a little bit more comfortable with it. I definitely, as I've mentioned already, that find, connecting with a family building consultant that I really clicked with. I talked to a few people when I started, and then I kind of clicked with one. So I would sort of wait till she was available and talk to her to kind of have that continuity. For me, that was helpful. Other people might not matter as much to them. And then online for me, I did find online communities of other, prospective parents or current parents, recipient parents of donor eggs who were either ahead of me or, in the process or already had families perhaps, or were going through it at the same time. And, many of us have kept in touch. And several of them who I met through the internet, we've met in real life now. We exchanged Christmas presents and photos of our kids. And so, I think finding a community, however you find them, because I didn't know anyone who, used donor eggs. And now I know so many people who have. And I also realized that there's a lot of people that have that you probably would never know. If they don't talk about it or they're private about it, you very well may know people in your life now that have, built their families that way, and you just might not be aware of it. So it felt strange and foreign to me when I started, and I've learned that it's much more common than I thought it was. And then the other thing that I always say, and I think it's true, is that there is a process of grieving the loss of your own genetics. Like it's a different kind of grief. It's the idea that your genes aren't going to move on in the world. It's a weird feeling, but I think it's something that you really have to like work through in your own time. And some people they get to that really quick. It's like, okay, it's not going to work with my own eggs. This is a great option. I'm ready to move forward. And other people, it takes a bit longer. And maybe you don't get to 100%. Maybe you get to 80 or 85, and you're thinking, this really seems like a good option. Um, and then, it's kind of taking that next step and moving forward with it. So whether it's setting up the free account and starting to look, talking to a consultant, donor egg bank, just trying to sort of get a better feel for it, or like I said, connecting with people online so that you start to share those stories and have some of those positive experiences. I think that's really helpful. So when they kind of asked me about this, I said this, and I really feel it's true. Like I am genuinely thankful my own eggs didn't work. I never would have thought initially that I would ever get to a place where I would say that. But my kids are just the perfect kids for me. Like I just love them so much. They're my kids. I rarely think about them being donor confused, to be perfectly honest. It's like, oh right, yes, okay, yes. But day to day, it's not something I think about at all. And like I say, my oldest son is conceived with my own eggs, and my other two sons are not. I don't feel any differently about them, like at all. And I've had both of those experiences. So I think compared to maybe people who have only had one or the other, I maybe have a bit of a unique perspective in that I've really had both experiences. And it just, for me, there just isn't a difference. Um, so I just want to reassure you that if you're thinking that maybe, they're not going to feel as much of your own kids, or they're going to feel like they're more your husband's kid, if that's or your partner's kid. Um, I want to reassure you that that's not the case for me. And I know so many families now with donor conceived children, and it's not the case for any of them either that I know. So, you know, I know that that's probably one of the biggest concerns people have when they start this process. And, this, like I say, this hilarious crew of little boys that just, terrorizes our house every day in our neighborhood. And it's so much fun and so loud. But it's wonderful. And it's exactly what we wanted when we started the process. And now they're all on the cul-de-sac playing with all the other kids. And it's, yeah, it's exactly what we wanted when we moved in here. So, great.
That's lovely. I can only imagine the sounds at your house.
You don't want to most days, but it's good. It's all good. Yeah. Yeah. So this is all of them. Yeah.
So sweet.
And, people say every day, oh, I can sure tell, I'm sure tell he's your son, he's your twin. And I just kind of go, oh, thanks. And laugh because, like they are all my sons, but, we don't all share DNA, but, we're all a family. So
Aw. You guys have a beautiful family.
thank you so much.
Oh, lovely. All right. Well, I'm gonna briefly go over the next slides. We have some Q&A questions coming up. So we really want to get to those. And just to start, what plan options do you have? Excuse me. So um, we of course love our refund plans, and we do have the assured refund plan, and we also have a multi-egg lot refund plan now, which is newer in the past few years. But both of these options offer you the live birth guarantee and provide you with 100% refund if not successful, as well as the opportunity of a 50% refund should you leave the plan. Um, an excellent choice. We've talked about it today. If you have very specific questions about qualifying, about any of the specifics to your treatment, I encourage you to give us a call. We'd love to talk to you and answer and put your mind at ease. But again, this, I feel like it gives some peace of mind that's unexpected. And it really aligns everyone, all of the donors on our database, we believe, give all of our clients the best opportunity of success. But the assured refund plan and our multi-egg refund plan just ally us with you over the life of the plan, and that we're pursuing that live birth with you over time. And so it's a really great partnership that I believe strongly in. Um, on our website, you'll also find information about our single cycle plan, our single egg lot plan, and our double egg lot plan. These are all options for individual egg lots. Our single cycle is going to be an egg lot along with procedures covered. So it's a bundle, what we call. And so this option is available at some clinics because we have to have a partnership in place. But it does discount eggs and procedures slightly for you. And it's a wonderful option. I also really like our single cycle plan. If that's the plan that is right for you, where you know that you want to give this just that one try, it's a wonderful option. Separately, we have our single egg lot plan. This is just eggs being shipped to your clinic with the guarantee of a blastocyst. And that's the case for all three of these. That's a guarantee of a blastocyst available for transfer or freezing or biopsy. We do have more details on our website. And again, I just highly encourage a call, a chat, an email. We do have a guide with more detailed information. But I think, like Jennifer said, sometimes those phone conversations, you're gonna ask one question that oftentimes is gonna lead to so many more, like 3 or 4 other questions that you didn't even know that were there. That are just going to get you a little bit closer to your decision making, which is at the end of the day the most important thing. You know, we believe strongly that you should feel confident in the decision that you make, and so we try to be as transparent as possible, give you all the information that we can, so that you can make those decisions. So these are ways that you can contact us. If you visit our website, you are able to register for free. As Jennifer did, you can look at the donor profiles. You can actually make a donor selection directly on there. But we invite you to call us. We are available from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have an email address where you can send us a message. If you'd like for us to give you a call, you may request that as well. But we're ready and eager to help you and answer your questions. So thank you again for going through this presentation with us. And we're gonna go ahead and take a look at the Q&As that we have. So let's dive in. And I do see someone had asked some questions about pricing in the chat. For our single egg lot plan and our double egg lot plan, we do have that information across the board. It's the same. Our single egg lot plan is 17,800. And again, that comes with a blastocyst guarantee. Our double egg lot is 34,000. I highly encourage, like I said, a conversation. Give us a call, because we are aiming to hear out what your plans are, to try to help you understand what each of these options provides you with, and that way you can make a decision as to what is the best plan for you. And then someone else asked, can you check if you're approved before picking an egg? And if you're asking about the refund plan approval, yes, you can absolutely go into review before you choose donor egg. You don't have to choose a donor previous to that. You can get approved first, so that you can know and have that additional confidence behind you to take the next steps.
And that's what we did. We made sure we didn't want to move forward without a guarantee, so we made sure we were qualified before we made any selections.
There you go. All right. Are there any restrictions and or qualifications for the live birth guarantee? And I can answer that. So what we're looking for is that there's general normal function of the uterus. So there's no major obstructions, like nothing major obstructing in the uterus, like a very big fibroid, very big, like polyps and things like that. Generally, there's normal function. We're looking for you to be able to achieve an 8 millimeter lining or more. We're looking for a BMI of 40 or less. And we do have sperm parameters. There should be at least 1 million motile sperm for the day of the thaw. These are all general and generous requirements. We will look at each person's file individually, and make the determination from there. So even if you're nervous about potentially being accepted or not, I just, there is no cost to the review. So even if you're early on, I think it's still encourageable to apply to see if you are approved, so that you can decide if that's the option you'd like to move forward with.
Yeah, for us, there was no cost until we actually picked a donor and shipped the eggs. So up to that point, like I said, there was no cost out of pocket. We were able to fully get qualified, make sure we were comfortable. Yeah.
Yep, you can get your egg selected, and it's only when you get once you're approved and you've selected the eggs, that's when we'll send you agreements and contracts and payment due dates, and that's once things are going, and then eggs can ship. But prior to then, there's there's nothing, no obligation, nothing holding you to moving forward then. Someone asked, they just wanted to double check. You said, Jennifer, that you had conceived your first child with your own eggs. She missed that.
Yeah, yeah, we did. We had gone through lots of fertility treatment and several failed rounds of IVF, and we did conceive our own child naturally, the old-fashioned way, after two consecutive miscarriages from IVF, the two previous cycles. Um, don't know, one of those weird things, a one-off. Clearly, we had pretty profound fertility issues.
And somebody kind of asked something following up to what you just said. They asked if your doctors were ever able to determine why the recurring miscarriages. This person also has unexplained recurrent pregnancy loss. So,
No, they weren't able to determine why. It was strongly suspected to be related to my egg quality. And that could kind of be seen in the fact that our embryos, when they were developing, were not developing at a normal rate. We never had a full blastocyst. We were transferring, sort of a Marella or like something that was a day or two behind what it should have been. So we could see, even in the lab with my own eggs, that things were not progressing the way they should. And then once we moved to donor eggs, we were seeing, full blastocysts, like normal cell counts. Things were very different once we moved to donor eggs. And of course, initially, I wanted it to be my husband's sperm, or I wanted it to be something else because we were unexplained. I didn't want it to feel like it was my fault, which kind of silly, but sort of how I felt. Well, it turns out it kind of was me at the end of the day. It looks like it was egg quality because once we moved to donor eggs, I mean, the difference was night and day as far as the quality of the embryos.
someone asked me if the assured refund plan includes treatment for every cycle. So the assured refund plan does include the treatments. It includes the egg thawing, fertilization, the recipient or the monitoring, and the transfer. It also includes cryopreservation and storage of additional embryos. So like if you end up with like 3 embryos, 4 embryos, the cryopreservation and storage of that is included in the cost of the plan as well. The multi-egg lot refund plan, which is a newer plan, was designed with the fact that more and more there's coverage for IVF and these kinds of procedures that the Assured Refund Plan has offered. And so that's the idea behind the multi-egg lot refund plan, and it would not offer the procedures covered. So you have some options if you have coverage for your own fertility treatments and just are looking for a live birth guarantee with the eggs. All right.
Great option.
Someone else asked, they said that their favorites list, some of their favorites list that are carriers for some diseases. Her husband and her have also tested as carriers as well. How do we determine the baby will be healthy? So ultimately, kind of what Jennifer had mentioned earlier, that conversation with a genetic counselor is it's so golden, it's so good. What we recommend is if you know who your sperm source is, if it's your husband, and he has been tested genetically and is a carrier of, genetic condition A. If you're looking at a donor profile, you have access to see the donor's genetic testing report. And so you want to first make sure that the donor was tested for genetic condition A and that she's not a carrier of genetic condition A. If she is, your doctor's going to tell you this isn't a good match. But if she was tested for it and is not a carrier for it, then generally you're probably fine. That's just, I'm not a genetic counselor, so I'm not the expert, but that's the rule of thumb. And then have your genetic counseling session and better understand, if you're a carrier of genetic condition A, the donor's a carrier of genetic condition B, what does that mean for us? Like what does that translate into? What the reassuring thing is that all of us, you, me, Jennifer, all of us, we're all carriers of something. It just depends on, if you test me for five things, or if you test me for for 1,000 conditions. When you test me for five things, it might say you're not a carrier of anything, but when you test me for 1,000, you're probably going to be a carrier of one, two, or five things. And it doesn't mean that you're not healthy. That's just how genes are. That's just how humans are built.
I was going to just say to that, Tanya, and again, I'm not a genetic counselor, so I'm not saying that, but when I first started looking, I thought I must pick a donor who doesn't carry anything. And I quickly learned that like that's not mostly realistic. It's just more making sure that your partner or whoever the sperm source is, if that they don't carry the same thing. Because as you say, almost everyone carries something. So I stopped looking for the perfect donor and started looking for the donor that was right for us and made sense for what we were after.
Yeah. And I highly discourage Googling any genetic conditions, because you want to talk to the genetic counselors to understand what it means first. Any condition, I would say, is probably going to look very scary when you search for it, but you have to understand, again, like we're all carriers of something, but do we have that thing that you're seeing in the search? Probably not. It's just the combination of the two pieces that's important to understand. So,
And those
highly
people out there who
support.
are having, babies are not testing ahead of time, right? Like you don't know.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. Someone asked if the assured refund plan is available with no treatment, which is a multi-egg lot refund plan. So I think we already touched on that. Jennifer, did you choose to PGTA test the donor embryos after your history of miscarriage?
We didn't, and actually at the time we did it, that wasn't a possibility. It is now, but that wasn't offered back when we did it. I don't think we would have anyways with donor eggs, to be perfectly honest with you. We felt pretty comfortable that it did seem to be an egg issue on my side. We could just see, like I said, the way they were developing in the lab and the way things were going, that it looked much healthier, but so we switched to donor eggs. I mean, a certain percentage of pregnancies miscarry all the time. We know, and donor eggs are no exception to that. So you can't, things happen with any eggs, and it's certainly, or sperm, it's very possible. So again, it's why I really like the assured refund plan, but no, we didn't do genetic testing.
Okay. And I think you did share this in your presentation. Somebody asked, Jennifer, you don't have to share, but may I ask how old you were when you went through the donor process?
Yeah, so when we went through the donor egg process, I would have been 35 at that point. I was 35. But I
And
have friends who were much older and friends that were younger. So
I was just gonna say, I want to say the majority of the clients the callers that we're talking to are probably between 35 and 45. Like that's the majority of our intended parents calling. We have some younger and we have some older, but the majority is in that group.
yeah, I have a friend who was 28 and a friend who was 49. So, as you say, there's a range.
Every range. And I think more and more, although not enough, people are discovering that they want to look into their fertility options earlier because they don't know, it hasn't been the norm in the past to like talk about testing for fertility and your hormone levels and things like that. And so some people are learning at an earlier age that they may need to seek donor egg treatment or some other treatment, So, um, so let's see. Do you have statistics on how many people in the Assure refund plan only ultimately require one donor, so end up overpaying? I don't have I don't have statistics on on people having success specifically in the assured refund plan after one try. Um, we do have statistics on our website, however, of overall egg lots and tries. Um, and I think that it's really tough. Like I think a lot of times we are looking for more information with statistics, but there's so many factors that come into this that are difficult to pinpoint what that's gonna mean for each individual because we're looking at even if we were to talk about all of the different factors for our clients in the refund plans, um, we know that there's a lot of different factors like some people are working with a gestational carrier, some people are working with their own uterus, some people have donor sperm, some people have their partner sperm. Um, so many different things impact the success. And I think the bottom line and the idea behind the assured refund plans goes back to Heidi Hayes, who had established Donor Egg Bank USA and her experience of success. And she would often talk about how the embryos that transferred that ended up being her twins, the doctor had told her were crappy embryos. They had a low chance of giving her success, and she ended up with two healthy babies. And it's just kind of that there's so much unknown. Like we are doing everything we can. We are screening the donors. Donor Egg Bank USA screens the donors to the best of our ability, and everybody that is posted on the website, we believe is going to give each of our clients the best chance of success. But we also know that it might take one person one try, and it might take another person 3 or 4 tries. And the refund plan works in kind of a balance that for those people who have success in one try, it's going to offset the cost for those people who needed 3 or 4 or 5 tries. And most people are want to be successful earlier on, and don't want to continue to have failure through this process. But having the protection of the plan is the ultimate benefit. And you have that hope of the live birth guarantee. And if at the end, which doesn't happen often, but we of course are going to have a small percentage of people who are not going to have success, they have the full refund to kind of to come back to them and just at least not leave them empty-handed entirely. Somebody asked, I'm 48. How old is too old for donor egg and to carry? 48, you're in the range of the majority of our intended parents. So we don't have an age limit. Your physician, your IVF clinic will. So you want to make sure you talk to your doctor to find out what what time frame and age limit you have. Have you approached talking to your kids about donor eggs, Jennifer?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That was one of the big things that came up in the counseling session, and also just from like reading online and talking to other people, and also donor conceived children who are now adults. A big thing that kind of kept coming up was just the idea of normalizing it from a really early age. So I've got a number of different books, children's books, that are sort of geared towards donor egg and different kinds of conception, not just donor eggs, for building families. And we started reading them like before the kids could understand, what we were reading. And obviously my youngest is still only 3 and my middle one is 5. So they're still young. They still don't understand DNA and genetics and like really the full concept of it. But we definitely talk about the donor, and we talk about, how mom's eggs ran out. We had one egg left, and we managed to have, our oldest son. And when we wanted to, have more children, my eggs had run out. And so we were really lucky that this wonderful person, the donor, gave us eggs to help complete our family. So we talked to them about that. And I think you had a photo of me earlier on reading books to them. So I have a whole list, and I've done a post for Donor Egg Bank. If you kind of go back on their website, listing some of the different books, including their own book. that I found are really great. But I find just sometimes like driving to daycare or driving to school, like, you know what I mean? They'll ask a random question or I'll just bring something up when we're in the car and we'll just talk about it and then we'll move on to something else. You know, at this age, they don't have a ton of questions, but we just want it to be a normal part of, you know, their story.
Someone else asked, how long did it take you to choose your donor?
First donor, I feel like it took me about three weeks, maybe. Like that's not from when we first started thinking about donor eggs, but from when we sort of like qualified for the plan. Okay, we knew we were approved, like my husband had gone for genetic testing, and now we were like looking with the idea that we might pick someone. I would say it took about 3 weeks from that point till when we chose our first donor. And I noticed that there was a question, maybe I can kind of segue to it here because it was kind of related to this, like why we chose a different donor after the miscarriage. Um, in most cases, not all cases, but most cases, if it doesn't work out with the first donor, typically you choose a different donor. Some people might not, but often that first donor might not be available anymore, or you know maybe that was their only egg lot, or you know for whatever reason, or you didn't have success with that egg donor, so maybe somebody else is just a better match. So in our case, we just really loved the second donor, and she hadn't been available previously, so we were pretty excited to move ahead with her. We were down to her and one other, and we really went back and forth. I talked to my doctor and said, A or B, A or B. And I talked to my consultant, and she helped me as well because she really wanted us to be successful after having sort of a rough go the first round. And my inclination was to go with this one, but she was a bit older, because that was another question that was asked. She was a little bit older, and she was only 2 years younger than me. And so I kind of was like, well, I don't know, like, does this make sense? But my gut just said that she was the right choice. And so we ended up going ahead with her, and she had a really solid, she had her own children. And yeah, it was a good success for us.
Excellent. Someone had asked, um, well, someone had asked what was the difference between your donor number one and your donor number two? Just what you look for that was different between them.
Yeah. Like I had more in common with donor number two. Donor number one was like looked a lot like me. She's blonde and blue-eyed. Donor number two was blonde and green-eyed, which is what I am. She had the same shoe size. She had the same blood type. She was a cheerleader in high school like I was. She liked to write like I did. So we just had a lot of things in common where I felt like it was kind of a really good match. Um, the other thing that I would say, like, when I first started out again, kind of thinking in my head, I'm going to pick the perfect donor, right? Like everyone kind of has that idea. Um, I focused a lot on education very early on, like for whatever reason. I thought, well, I want somebody who's really educated. And I quickly realized that most of these donors are young. So the amount of education that they have is probably not indicative like of intelligence at all. So I stopped. What I would say is open up your criteria when you're searching on the site. I took out race, I took out hair color, I took out like all the things I originally had so narrow and I was only seeing like a few profiles. I took all of those things out and I just started looking more openly because a lot of people, like our first donor was mixed race, but blonde and blue eyed. And had I kept my criteria super, super narrow, I wouldn't have even seen her profile. It turned out she had a tiny bit of Native American, somewhere back there. And so she was listed as mixed race. And I would have not seen her because I was looking for, someone who looks more like me. So my advice would be like, open up your search parameters, look at more donors. It's easier to eliminate ones, but you don't want to eliminate people that might be a great choice. And maybe you're just not seeing them because of your search criteria.
I think that's really key because I sometimes people come in expecting to see maybe thousands of donors to search from, and there is such a strict screening process and selection process that it can feel like very challenging when you find, a couple hundred donors that you're searching through. And so Um, I think that's really encouraging to kind of have your criteria, but also open the search and and talk to people, and hear some others' advice, because sometimes you may miss out on someone who really does meet what you're looking for. Um, it's just it's small little things like that. But, I will say that our team really does try to encourage that type of um, openness to searching and changing filters so that you can find the right match. Um, we are running out of time, unfortunately, and I do see that we have a lot of questions. Um, we're gonna go ahead and collect some of these questions again. If we didn't answer your question today, please give us a call, send them a message or an email, because we'd love to answer your questions and help and guide you towards the next steps. But I I strongly encourage everyone to consider the assured refund plan. Um, and don't worry so much about qualifying. Get that process started, because we'll let you know what you can do. And sometimes it may be we need a little bit more information, but it doesn't mean that you aren't capable or capable of participating in this plan. So there's a lot of benefits. And so I want everyone to feel encouraged and um know that we're here to support and answer questions and guide and communicate with your clinic and help you along the way. Jennifer, thank you so much again for joining us. Thank you everyone for participating with us today, and we look forward to hearing from you, to connecting with you, and helping you through the next steps on your journey.
Thanks so much for having me today, Tanya. Thanks, everyone.
Care.